Welcome to Eerie Trail, where forgotten roads, haunted silence, and long shadows tell stories no one else dares to remember. If you're drawn to the strange, the lost, and the unsettling, you're in the right place. Like the video, drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories that don't just scare, they stay with you. Under a low, bruised sky, a rusted sign leaned at the edge of a two-lane blacktop slicing through East Texas pine country. It used to say, "Welcome to Mayfield, a nice place to call home," but the N had been shot out years ago, leaving it to declare only a ice place to call home. Nobody ever bothered to fix it. Mayfield hadn't been a nice place in a long time. It was the kind of town you miss if you blink. The gas station had a pump that ticked instead of beeped, and the one diner still used paper menus stained with coffee rings. Folks kept to themselves. The church was full on Sundays, but the preacher had been caught drinking mouthwash in the pulpit once, and no one had really listened to him since. There were stories about Mayfield. Whispers passed between long-haul truckers and high school dropouts who never got far enough to leave. Most were about the woods. Old pine forests dense enough to swallow the sun, thick enough you could scream yourself hoarse and never be heard. But it started again, this time with a girl. Her name was Anna Temple, 18, working part-time at the Family Dollar, driving her dead dad's '94 Chevy with one speaker that only played AM. She had red hair, freckled arms, and a habit of chewing on the collar of her shirts when she got nervous. She'd always lived in Mayfield, always heard the stories, and like most folks who grew up in them, she didn't believe any of it. Not the white man in the pines, not the hollow woman with her bleeding mouth. Just small-town folklore. Good for a laugh, or a scare around the fire out by Dry Creek. But then her friend Becca went missing. It happened on a Wednesday. Anna remembered because they were supposed to go to Tyler to shoplift nail polish and smoke behind the Tractor Supply store. Becca never showed. Nobody made much fuss at first. Becca had a tendency to disappear for a day or two, sometimes chasing boys into the woods or tagging along with her meth-head cousin to go camping near the Sabine. But after 3 days, her mom filed a report. After 5, search parties were formed. They never found Becca, not even a piece of clothing. Just her phone, screen cracked, battery dead, lying at the edge of the forest just past Tuckerman Road. The location sent a little chill through Anna when she heard it. That's the part of the woods they always said was wrong. Not haunted, not cursed, just wrong. Folks said the trees there grew too close, their roots too tangled. Birds didn't sing. Bugs didn't buzz. Deer walked wide around it like they knew better. There was a hunting cabin out there, a ruin from the '40s. No one had lived in it for decades, but sometimes people saw smoke from the chimney. When they went to look, nothing was there. A week after Becca vanished, Anna started having dreams. In them, Becca stood at the tree line, barefoot and wide-eyed, her mouth hanging open like she was trying to scream but couldn't. Her skin was pale, her lips blue. There were scratches on her arms, deep ones, and something moved behind her in the trees. Something big. Something that breathed heavy, like it had lungs the size of refrigerators. Anna would wake up gasping, the sheets soaked with sweat, her ears ringing with the sound of cracking wood and slow, dragging footsteps. On the 9th day, Anna found herself driving. Not sure when she started, not sure why. It was sunset. Her truck rumbled over the cracked asphalt like it had a mind of its own. The forest loomed on either side, tall pines casting long shadows across the road. She passed the turnoff to Tuckerman Road, and her fingers turned the wheel without her permission. At the end of the dirt track, the woods yawned open like a hungry mouth. She parked, engine ticking in the silence. No wind. No birds. Just that awful stillness, like the whole world had taken a breath and forgot how to let it go. She didn't remember grabbing the flashlight from under her seat, but there it was in her hand as she stepped out. Her boots crunched the gravel. Her breath fogged the air, even though it was June. The trees swallowed her. The path was overgrown, half remembered from old stories and late-night dares. She walked until the trees felt too close, until the light behind her was gone. Then, just as the last smear of daylight faded, she saw it. The cabin had hunched like an old man, roof sagging, windows black and empty. Smoke curled from the chimney. Something warm and greasy floated on the air, something like meat, but not quite. Anna raised her flashlight. The beam jittered, the battery dying, casting long shadows through the slats in the walls. The door stood open. Inside, the cabin was empty, mostly. Cobwebs in every corner, a rusted stove, a cot with moldy blankets, and in the far corner, a trapdoor. She didn't want to open it. Every part of her screamed don't, screamed run. But something else, something cold and ancient, had hold of her now. She crossed the floor, each step creaking loud enough to raise the dead. The trapdoor opened with a groan. The stairs beneath were stone, not wood. Too neat, too deliberate. They spiraled down into blackness that swallowed her flashlight beam whole. Still, she descended. Down and down and down. She lost count after 40 steps. Her skin itched. Her ears popped. The air smelled like rot. And then she heard it. A voice soft, whispering her name from the dark. Anna. She froze. The voice came again, not quite Becca's, but close. Like something had worn her voice like a mask and didn't quite know how it fit. Anna. Help me. She ran the last of the stairs and came into a room carved out of rock. Candles burned in niches along the walls, dripping wax that smelled like sulfur. At the center of the room, something moved. Becca. Or something that looked like her. She stood in a circle of bones. Her skin was too pale, almost translucent. Her eyes were black, not the pupils, the whole damn thing. Black like oil. Black like space. Her mouth was too wide, her teeth too small and too many. She smiled when she saw Anna. I brought you here, the thing said. Its voice crackled like dry leaves. I needed someone else. Anna tried to back away, but the shadows moved. They wrapped around her ankles, her wrists, tugging her toward the circle. It lives here, the Becca thing said. It feeds. Every 10 years, a girl from town. Always from Mayfield, always one who doesn't believe. Anna screamed, finally, fully, but it didn't matter. The shadows pulled her in, the last thing she saw before the dark swallowed. Her was the real Becca, or what was left of her, crawling from a crack in the wall. Skin like paper, eyes weeping blood. She mouthed, I'm sorry. And then it was all gone. They found Anna's truck 3 days later. Door open, lights on, radio playing nothing but static. Her mom went mad within a week. Her brother shot himself the following month. No one looked for Anna. Not seriously. Not anymore. People in Mayfield still tell the story. Another girl, lost. To the woods. They say the cabin is gone again. No trace. No smoke. But if you're near Tuckerman Road after dark, roll down your window. You might hear footsteps. You might hear a voice. Help me. Just don't stop. Don't look back. And 4. God's sake, don't follow. The highway stretched flat and dead straight under the burning Texas sun, like someone had dropped a length of black ribbon across the land and forgot about it. Route 59 used to be important. Before the new interstate came in, before towns like Deadwater, Bullhorn, and Lomashade emptied out and rotted. Now it was a road for ghosts, used mostly by truckers who didn't ask questions and loners trying to disappear. Cell signal died somewhere past Eagle's Nest and didn't come back. For miles, somewhere along that nothingness sat a gas station. No name, no lights. Just a squat concrete building with a flickering open sign that only lit the P and the N. Folks called it the last pump, half joking. The canopy above the pumps was sun-bleached and birdshit spotted. The ground was stained with oil so old it looked like dried blood. But the place worked. The pumps took cards. The doors opened. The air conditioner rattled inside. You could get a lukewarm soda, some jerky, maybe a pack of stale Camels. And sometimes, just sometimes, you could never leave. Dean Hargrove was on the run when he stopped there. Ex-cop, ex-husband, and soon-to-be ex-con if the state caught. Up with him. He'd done some bad things in Dallas. Shot the wrong man, or maybe the right one, depending on your point of view. He hadn't planned to go south, but the car took him there. Like gravity. Or guilt. He hadn't slept in 20 hours when he saw the gas station appear out of the shimmering heat, crouched on the edge of the mesquite brush. His tank was below a quarter. His mouth tasted like pennies. There was a storm in the distance. Black clouds rolling across the flatland like spilled ink. The kind of storm that didn't ask permission. He pulled in, the pump whined as he filled the tank. The digital readout blinked once, twice, then froze. $6.66. Dean frowned. He tried to reset it. Nothing. The button stuck. The nozzle refused to. Click. The smell of gas hit him sharp, metallic, and sweet. A headache bloomed behind his eyes. He went inside. The door creaked open like it hadn't been used in years. The place was dim, lit by yellow fluorescents that buzzed like angry hornets. The air was thick. Too thick. Like breathing through soup. Behind the counter sat a man in a filthy white shirt, his face hidden behind a plastic smile, literally. A Halloween mask. The kind kids wear when they want to be clowns or killers. The man didn't move. Dean cleared his throat. Pumps busted. Silence. The man tilted his head, slowly, mechanically. Dean felt the hairs rise on his arms. I said the pump. The man raised one gloved hand and pointed, not at Dean. At the mirror behind him. Dean turned and saw himself, but not himself. In the reflection, he looked 10 years older, gaunt, eyes black, blood on his shirt, blood on his hands. Behind him, where the empty aisle should have been, stood people, dozens of them, all frozen, all watching. Everyone wearing a mask. Dean spun back around. Empty store. Just the man at the counter, still pointing. I don't want trouble. Dean said, backing toward the door. I'm just passing through. The man's voice came at last, soft, wet, like a voice heard through a wall of water. Everyone says that. Dean ran. He got back in the car, turned the key. Nothing. The radio clicked on by itself. White noise. Then a voice. His voice. I didn't mean to kill her. Dean went cold. His fingers shook on the wheel. The windows fogged over, inside and out. A thumping sound echoed from the trunk. Once, twice. He got out, opened the trunk. It was empty, but the smell, Jesus. The smell. He looked back at the gas station. No longer empty. Figures pressed against the glass, too many to count, all masked. All watching, some small, child-sized, some huge and hunched. One had a deer skull for a head. Another wore a wedding. Dress soaked in black fluid. Dean slammed the trunk shut, started walking. No phone. No signal. No passing cars. Just Route 59 stretching endless in both directions. He walked for what felt like hours. His shoes shredded. His skin burned. But the station was always there, behind him, in front of him, beside him, no matter where he looked. By nightfall, he gave up, crawled back inside the car. The masked man waited in the passenger seat. Dean screamed. The man didn't move, just lifted one hand and pointed. Outside the window, the figures closed in. And then the lights went out. In the morning, a state trooper named Carla Ramirez stopped by the gas station. Her cruiser needed fuel, and she liked to check on forgotten places. The pumps worked fine. The store was quiet, empty. But in the mirror behind the counter, she swore she saw something move. A man, screaming. Pounding on the glass, then gone. She chalked it up to a trick of the light. They always do. People say Route 59 is cursed. Others say there's a crack in the world out there, thin enough for things to slip through. But whatever the truth is, if you ever find yourself low on gas, tired, half lost in that dry, dead stretch of Texas, don't stop at the station with no name, don't talk to the man in the mask, and if the pump reads $6.66, run. Don't look back. Not even once * Lake Jericho wasn't on any recent map. Once, back in the 50s, it had been a reservoir. A man-made basin to feed the thirst of far-off towns like Huntington and New Liberty. The government bought out a handful of farmers, flooded their land, and called it progress. What they didn't mention was that there had once been a house. At the lake bed, not a shack or cabin, but a full 2-story home with whitewood siding and red trim. Local legend said the house belonged to the Havers family. Husband, wife, and 4 daughters. None of them left before the flood. Some say they didn't want to. Some say they couldn't. By the 1980s, Lake Jericho was nearly forgotten. The state stopped maintaining the road. Drought lowered the water line. So far that fish died in piles along the muddy shore. But the house, or part of it, came back. It breached the surface like a surfacing corpse, its roof first, then a half-rotted window, a crooked chimney. The top floor stood above water now, but no one dared go in except Parker. Parker Graves was 23, freshly dumped, and drunk on cheap gin when he decided to visit the lake. He'd grown up hearing the stories. His grandmother once told him that the Havers' youngest daughter, May, was found floating upside down in the bathtub, her eyes sewn shut with fishing line. That the father went mad and buried someone, beneath the floorboards. That sometimes, even now, on foggy nights, you could hear a girl's voice singing from under the water. Parker thought it was bullshit. Old Southern ghost tales. Same kind of stuff folks told to scare each other around fire pits while high on weed and stolen beer. But something about that night, the rain, the heartbreak, the isolation, made him take the turn off the gravel road and drive down to Jericho. The lake was quiet, still, too still. No frogs, no birds, no wind. The house jutted from the center like a broken tooth. Its top floor and part of the second were exposed now, like the water itself had given up trying to hide it. The red paint peeled in long strips. One shutter flapped lazily. The rest of the world, moon, stars, trees, all seemed to hold their breath. Parker grabbed the rowboat chained at the edge. Someone had left it half sunk and mossy, but it held. He paddled out, laughing to himself. "Gonna find me a ghost," he muttered. He docked at the side of the house, where a cracked balcony drooped into the black water. The wood was soft, almost spongy beneath his boots. The door hung open. Smelled like wet wood, mildew, and something else, something metallic, like pennies and meat. Inside, the house was half-drowned. The first floor was submerged. Only the upstairs hallway and 2 bedrooms were accessible. Wallpaper sloughed off in strips. Water dripped steadily from the ceiling. A child's toy, a wooden doll with one missing arm, floated in the corner. He lit a flashlight. The beam cut through the gloom, catching on an old mirror. And in the mirror, he saw the girl, long black hair, pale skin, eyes completely white, standing right behind him. He spun. Nothing. Just the empty hallway. Just the soft slosh of water in the walls. He laughed nervously. "Okay, yeah. Good one," he muttered, brain playing tricks. He walked toward the master bedroom. The floor creaked with each step, but held. The door was closed. He reached for the knob, but the second his fingers touched it, slam. Behind him, the bedroom. Door at the far end slammed shut so hard the whole hallway shook. He turned, hard hammering. The light flickered in his hand. Ben died. He was alone in the dark, but not really. He heard it then, soft, wet footsteps. Like bare feet walking. Through puddles. Coming closer, slow, deliberate. And underneath it a girl's voice, whisper singing. Waters deep and waters wide. Can't cross over to t'other side. Parker backed up into the bedroom door behind him. It creaked open under his weight, and he fell inside. The room was bone dry. Dust caked every surface. The window had been nailed shut. Old furniture sat draped in sheets. At the center stood a child's bed, pink, metal framed, twisted with rust. On the bed sat a girl, couldn't be more than 10. Her dress was soaked. Her hair hung over her face. She didn't move. Parker froze. "Hello?" he said. She looked up. Her eyes were gone. Just hollow black sockets. Her mouth twitched open, and a thick stream of lake water poured out, not dripping, flowing, like a broken pipe. Then she stood. The room screamed with sound, water crashing in, voices crying, footsteps slamming on floors that weren't there. The flashlight sparked once in his hand, and he saw the walls were covered in writing, scratched in with nails. Stay down. Stay down. The girl lunged. Parker bolted. He ran back down the hallway, slipped, hit the floor hard. As he scrambled up, his fingers sank into something. West of Abilene, where the land turns to dust and the roads run long and empty like scars across a dead man's back, there sits a motel no one remembers building. No one owns it. No one runs it. And yet, it's always open. It's called the Juniper Motel, though the rusted sign out front flickers between missing letters. Sometimes it says Junpei_Hotel, sometimes just hell. There's no Wi-Fi, no website, no real address. But when you're tired enough, when you've driven too long and too far under that brutal Texas sun, it appears like a mirage with a vacancy light. Eli Mercer found it by accident. He was headed west, fleeing Houston with a duffel bag full of stolen cash, a cracked burner phone, and enough guilt to drown in. He'd robbed the wrong people, cartel money, blood money, and they were hunting him like a dog. For 3 straight days, he drove without stopping longer than a gas fill. No radio, no music. Just the road and his fraying mind. On the 4th night, he started seeing things. Figures in the rear view. Lights that weren't headlights. At one point, he swore something with antlers and human hands ran across the highway in front of him. By the time the needle dipped below E, he was near Big Spring, miles from anything. That's when he saw the motel, just a sliver of orange neon in the dark, sitting squat and low behind a chain-link fence. No cars, no people. Just 12. Rooms lined in a row like crooked teeth. Desert wind howled through dry weeds. A gutted truck sat on blocks in the corner lot, its windshield cracked like spider webs. Eli pulled in anyway. The office was unlocked. The bell didn't ring. Behind the counter, a brass key sat under a sign that read, Room 13, Rest Well. There wasn't supposed to be a Room 13. Motel skipped it, superstition and all. But this one had it. He took the key. No one stopped him. The room was old but clean. Threadbare carpet, beige wallpaper, a rotary phone that didn't dial out. There was a smell he couldn't place, like iron and rain and something moldy underneath. The bed had one pillow. The bathroom mirror was cracked. The shower dripped even when turned off. But Eli was beyond caring. He locked the door, pushed a chair under the knob, drew the curtains shut. The sound of the desert wind faded almost instantly, like the walls had swallowed it. He fell into bed fully dressed and woke to the phone ringing. It was pitch black outside the window. Even though his phone said 8:43 a.m., he picked it up. Static. Then a voice, whisper soft, young, female. Do you want to confess now, Eli? He dropped the phone. There was no dial tone. No power. His heart hammered. Sweat beaded at his neck. He grabbed his bag, yanked the door open, and stepped into another room. Not the parking lot. Not the motel walkway. A different room entirely. This one larger, older. Red carpet stained dark. Heavy curtains drawn. A woman stood in the corner, facing away. Hair down to her waist, skin gray and blotchy. She turned slowly. It was his mother, dead. 10 years, but her face, it wasn't right. Half her jaw dangled loose. One eye gone, socket hollow. When she opened her mouth, water poured out. Dirty lake water, full of silt and things that wriggled. He screamed, backed up, and found himself in room 13 again. The chair still under the door, the curtain still drawn. But everything wrong now. The wallpaper was peeling, the bed soaked in. Some dark fluid, his bag was gone. The mirror above the dresser reflected not him, but a version of him. Pale, eyes scratched out, smiling. He stumbled outside and found the hallway had changed. Longer now, endless. The other doors stretched away into pitch black. He picked one, room 9. Inside, it smelled of gasoline and charred meat. A man was nailed to the ceiling, still twitching. On the wall, written in what looked like blood, were the words, "IT wasn't your money?" He slammed the door shut, ran back. No exit, no parking lot. Just desert wind howling inside the walls now. Cold and full of whispers. He tried every room. Each one showed him something new. A crying child, a burning man, a bathtub full of hair. One room was completely empty except for a mirror. In that mirror, his reflection hung from the ceiling fan. Eventually, he stopped opening the doors. Back in room 13, he curled into the corner and cried. He heard the voice again that night. The girl on the phone. Only this time, it was in the room with him. She stood at the foot of the bed, maybe 11 years old, soaking wet, mouth sewn shut. In her hands, she held the bag of money. She opened it, instead of cash. It was full of teeth. His teeth. She smiled, despite the stitches, and vanished. When dawn came, Eli opened the door. The parking lot was back. His car sat where he left it. The sun was rising. He ran. Got in. Sped down the dirt road, fishtailing on gravel. Never looked back. 3 days later, he was found dead in a Greyhound bathroom in El Paso. No drugs. No wounds. Just sitting there, stiff, every tooth missing, and his hands soaked in blood. No one ever found the Juniper Motel again. But truckers say, on long hauls through that empty stretch of West Texas, if you're tired enough and desperate enough, you might see a dot, and if you stay in room 13, it learns your secrets, and it doesn't let you leave without taking something. Asterisk, they called it Milner's Hollow, not officially. On the maps, the place was just a tangle of forest east of Livingston, where the pines grew too thick for the sun to touch the ground. But the locals knew it. Old-timers talked about it in low voices at the diner, warning kids not to go past. Old Copper Road, once the shadows got long. The hollow had a history. One of blood and dirt and things buried too deep. Back in 1863. During the war, a regiment of Confederate deserters set up camp in the woods, hiding from both sides. They were led by a man named Gideon Milner, a preacher turned butcher who believed God had abandoned the South and that only death could bring salvation. His followers were men broken by war, some half mad, all desperate. They built a chapel from the bones of burned homes, buried their dead without markers. And when they ran out of food, well, there were rumors the army found them a year later. Didn't take prisoners. The clearing was burned. The chapel collapsed. The graves left to rot. No one went back until 2023. Alex and Kendra were two urban explorers, mid-20s, always chasing the next thrill. They ran a small YouTube channel, Ghost Grid, mostly abandoned places, urban legends, night vision walks through crumbling hospitals. They wanted something bigger, something truly cursed. A follower sent them a tip, a black and white photo of a moss-covered stone, Milner's Hollow. They say time dies here. That was enough for them. They drove out from Dallas on a cloudy March morning. The roads got narrower. Paved turned to gravel, gravel to dirt. Cell signal vanished 2 hours out. By the time they passed the old no trespassing signs, the pine trees were a tunnel around them. The woods smelled like iron and rain. They parked where the truck couldn't go further. Hiked the rest. It took them 3 hours to find the clearing. It didn't look like much. Just a patch of earth that wouldn't grow anything. Not even moss. The trees bent away from it as if afraid. In the center sat a broken stone altar, half sunk into the ground. The air was still. Too still. Alex set up the tripod. Kendra, read the EMF. It clicked softly, steadily. Even though there was no power source for miles. They began the ritual. Just for show, of course. It was all part of the content. Say the preacher's name. Ring a bell. Step over the hollow in a circle. But the moment Alex said Gideon Milner aloud, the forest changed. Sound vanished. No birds. No wind. Just silence. Thick, pressing, like cotton in the ears. Kendra looked up. Her face went pale. Where's the sun? She whispered. He looked too. The sky was still there, but the light was wrong. Dim, faded, like dusk, but colorless. Everything had turned slightly greenish, as if seen through old glass. Alex checked his phone. No time. Just a black screen. They started packing up. That's when they saw the chapel. Hadn't been there before. A skeletal frame of blackened wood, leaning at impossible angles. The boards looked soaked in something dark. The door hung open. Inside was only shadow. Kendra stared at it. It's not on camera, she said. She turned the screen toward him. Nothing, just trees. No building. Alex stepped closer. The door creaked. He heard a whisper inside. Like wind through teeth. Come see the sermon. He stepped back. They started back toward the car, but the path was gone. Where the trail had been was only thick underbrush and thorns. Trees where there were none before. Everything smelled heavier. Wet ash, rot, something sweet and sour like overripe fruit. They circled for hours, or what felt like hours. The sky never changed. At one point, they found a grave. Not a marked one. Just a dip in the earth, fresh like it had been dug that morning. Next to it stood a wooden cross carved with symbols neither of them could read. Kendra touched it. The EMF exploded in her hand, and the cross caught fire. No smoke. Just blue flame. Silent. She screamed. Dropped the meter. The earth beneath the grave began to churn. A hand pushed through. Bone. Skin sloughing off. Black fingernails. Alex grabbed her and ran. They didn't make it far. Back in the clearing. The chapel loomed closer now, larger, breathing. The boards twisted like muscles. Something was singing inside. 100 voices. Off key. Wet. They backed away. And saw the followers. Figures stood just beyond the trees. Dozens, maybe more. Dressed in ragged Civil War uniforms, skin pale and bloated. Eyes gone. Their mouths moved in time with the song, but no sound came. Then the preacher stepped out. Gideon Milner. His eyes were stitched shut. His collar soaked in something black. In one hand, he held a rusted cross made from bones. In the other a bell. It started with the smell. Not rot, not mildew, not anything you could name exactly, just something off, like time had curled in on itself and soured. Avery McCullough noticed it the moment she stepped off the gravel road and into the tree line. Boots solace sinking into the wet loam of deep East Texas. She was alone, stupidly, stubbornly alone. Her boyfriend Caleb had ditched her last minute, citing some emergency with his cousin's bull getting loose. She didn't believe him. But she wasn't about to miss her chance at finding the McCarty Cemetery, a half-forgotten plot of land, lost somewhere past the winding cane trail, where Civil War bones were supposed to lie scattered beneath rust-bitten iron and pine needles thick as snow. It was a photographer's dream. Moss-choked gravestones, gnarled trees, stories half buried. And Avery needed something good, something eerie and raw, for her thesis project at Tyler. The deeper she went, the quieter the woods became, not peaceful quiet, but the kind that makes you aware of your own blood. The branches seemed to lean inward. Even the squirrels had gone still. A hot wind curled around her neck like breath. The trail narrowed, then vanished entirely, and still she pressed on, guided only by a crude hand-drawn map she'd found online, uploaded by a ghost hunting forum long since inactive. A red circle marked McCarty family plot, and below that, someone had scrawled in shaky letters, "They don't stay buried." She'd laughed at that in the dorm, but now, with every step muffled by moss and silence, the words kept clawing back into her thoughts. After an hour, maybe two, her phone had no service, and the clock kept jumping back to 3:17. She stumbled into a clearing. A hush fell so complete that even her breath felt intrusive. The cemetery was there, as promised. A sunken fence of wrought iron, half swallowed by vines and rust, surrounded by towering pines that blocked out most of the sun. Stones leaned like drunkards, some shattered entirely. One still bore a name, Ezra McCarty, 1836 to 1864, Confederate States Army, taken, not by war, but by the reckoning. Avery raised her camera, framed the shot, and froze. Through the lens, the clearing looked different, sharper, yes, but also older. The rust vanished. The fence stood straight. The moss thinned. She pulled the camera down and blinked, back to ruin. She looked again through the lens, pristine. A breeze kicked up, scattering brittle leaves, and with it came a sound, a rhythmic thump, like boots on soil, distant but growing closer. Spun around. Nothing. The woods were unchanged, but the smell was stronger now, thick, cloying, coppery. She raised the camera again. Shapes moved beyond the trees. Men in gray uniforms, faces slack and eyes empty. One stumbled, dragging a shattered leg behind him. Another held something gleaming in his hand. Avery saw it was a jawbone. Her scream caught in her throat, too dry to escape. She lowered the camera. They were gone. But her body told her they weren't. She backed away, heart hammering, and her boot caught something hard beneath the pine needles. She knelt, brushing the ground aside. A hand reached up. She fell back hard, gasping. The hand was stone, just a statue fragment, maybe a broken grave marker, but it felt warm. She scrambled up and turned to run, but the trail had vanished behind her. The trees looked different, denser, the trunks closer together, bark slick, with sap that glistened like fresh blood. She pushed forward anyway, crashing through limbs and undergrowth, following a flicker of light that ducked between the trees. A lantern? A firefly? Something drew her. She broke into another clearing, this one unfamiliar, though her gut screamed otherwise. It held a house, ancient and sunken, its porch collapsed, windows black and watching. Spanish moss hung like drowned hair from the roof's edge. On the door, etched deep into the wood, was the same name, McCarty. Something inside moved. She turned, but her legs locked. The woods behind her had closed entirely, thick trunks where none had stood seconds ago. She had no choice but forward. The door creaked open as she stepped closer, though no wind blew. The interior swallowed her flashlight beam. Her foot crossed the threshold. The door slammed shut. Inside, the air pressed against her skin like water. The smell was unbearable now, metallic, old, wet. She saw them then, seated around a long table. Men in uniform, eyes black pits, mouths slack. In front of each, a cracked plate holding something gray and glistening. One turned its head toward her. Its lips moved, but no sound came. Then another. Then all of them, mouths chewing, whispering, humming a rhythm that matched the beating of her heart. She stumbled back, tripped, landed hard. Her camera cracked against the floor. She reached for it, but it was gone. The room was fading, light draining upward like smoke. Only their eyes remained black, endless. She screamed then. At least she thought she did. Her mouth opened, her throat tore, but the sound never left. Something moved beneath the floorboards, then inside the walls. Something old. It whispered in her voice. When she awoke, she was lying in the clearing again. Morning light poured through the trees. Her clothes were damp with dew. Her camera sat neatly beside her, undamaged, battery full. She stood slowly, bones aching. She turned on the camera, checked the photos. All blank, except one. A single image. Avery, standing at the edge of the McCarty cemetery, staring straight into the lens, but she hadn't taken it. She hadn't been smiling. And behind her, in perfect focus, stood the men in gray. They were closer now, and they were still smiling. Asterisk. They called it Devil's Drop. Not on any map, of course, but everyone in the tiny town of Langley Bend knew where it was. A deep sinkhole tucked behind a crumbling oil derrick in the pine thickets outside town, just off a dirt road that hadn't seen pavement in 50 years. It was the kind of place your granddad warned you about in a low voice, the kind of story you heard at bonfires when the beer got warm and the fire burned low. But no one ever really believed in it. Not until people started disappearing. Maya didn't grow up in Langley Bend. She came from Houston, fresh out of college with a half-finished geology degree and a chip on her shoulder. She thought the internship was beneath her, just another state-funded backwoods soil survey. But the funding was solid and she needed the hours, so she came. She met the locals. She smiled at their warnings, at their quiet little superstitions. Don't go past the derrick. Don't go near the drop after dark. Don't listen to what calls from the hole. She rolled her eyes, took notes, filed samples. And then one night, curiosity turned stubborn. The old derrick stood like a fossil on the ridge, rusted through and flanked by pines that bent like they were leaning in to listen. Beyond it, through tall grass and mud, was the drop, a perfectly round sinkhole, wide as a silo, dark as pitch. No animals came near it. No birds flew over. Not even mosquitoes hovered above. It should have stunk of swamp water or oil, but it didn't. It smelled like stone and cold and something deeper like the air before a storm. But older, Maya approached the edge with her equipment. She just wanted a seismic read. Nothing fancy. Just data. But as the monitor clicked on, the screen glitched. Then again, and then the machine died. Not just off dead, fried. The sun had dropped faster than she expected. The sky turned indigo and the woods behind her stretched into shadow. That's when she heard it. A voice, not loud, not harsh, gentle, like a lullaby murmured from underwater. It didn't call her name, it didn't need to. It said, "Come down," and somehow she understood. She wasn't frightened, not at first. The voice was familiar. It sounded like her sister, her mother. Her own voice echoing back through memory. She stepped closer to the edge. The hole went down farther than light could touch. And it wasn't empty. There was something at the bottom, movement, shapes, glimmers like eyes. The earth around her shifted slightly. The lip of the hole pulsed. Maya dropped a small rock. Number. Sound came back. She looked up and realized the trees were gone. The derrick gone. The sky was gone. Everything around her had gone black. No stars, no wind. Only the voice humming now, low and rhythmic. It scraped at the inside of her skull. She turned to run, but the woods twisted. She ran anyway, branches, snagging her sleeves, her skin, her thoughts. The forest didn't feel right. The trees moved when she wasn't looking. Their trunks turned toward her. At one point, she stumbled across a rabbit, gutted and laid out in a circle of pine cones, still twitching. No blood dot the second time she heard the voice. It came from inside her chest. She made it back to town just before dawn. Mud slick, scratched. Eyes wild. She didn't speak. Didn't answer when the clerk at the gas station asked if she was all right. Just stared past him, toward the woods. She slept in her car that night, engine running. She left in the morning. Or tried to. The road. Out of Langley Bend stretched straight and flat, bordered by fields and trees. She drove for an hour, then two. The trees grew thicker. The air grew colder. And then the car sputtered and died. She was back at Devil's Drop. Only now, there was no derrick, no path. Just the hole. And this time, there was something climbing. Out of it, a wet, slick sound, like meat dragging over gravel. Long arms, black fingers, no face. Just a hole where a mouth might be. A hole that pulsed, whispered, smiled. Maya screamed. But it was silent here. Nothing moved. Not really. Later, the state sent another intern. Then a ranger. Then two more. None came back. The town stopped asking. They put up no signs, no fences. Just told their kids not to go past the old ridge. Not to listen when the woods started whispering, but they all knew They found the well in late October, buried beneath a collapsed barn outside Lufkin, just a crumbling ring of limestone and red clay, mostly choked with vines. Daniel Gentry was the first to see it, a land surveyor sent by the state to mark off parcels for an oil lease. He almost missed it, except something caught his eye. The grass around the old well didn't grow. Not dead, not scorched, just never there. Like the soil was too afraid to hold life, he stepped closer. The air grew. Still, no bird song, no rustle of leaves. It wasn't just quiet, it was wrong. The way hospitals are wrong at midnight. The way you feel when someone's staring at you in the dark. Daniel peered in. There was no water, just blackness thick and soft-looking, like velvet, and it was wet. He could hear it, a steady drip. Slow, like something bleeding. That night, Daniel woke up in his motel room with muddy footprints on the carpet. He lived alone. The windows were shut. He didn't remember leaving. The prints were small, child-size. He went back the next day. Brought rope, a flashlight, his camera. He lowered the camera in first on a line while recording. 10 feet, 20, 30. Then something tugged. The rope went slack, the line snapped, and the camera was gone. When he pulled the rope back up, it was soaked, not with water, but with something warm. He stopped sleeping. Not really. When he closed his eyes, he heard crying soft at first, like a child lost in the woods. Then louder, desperate, then angry. His dreams filled with voices that spoke in circles, asking questions that never ended. Why didn't you pull us out? Why didn't you listen? Why didn't you close it? Local records showed nothing about a well. The land had been abandoned since 1967 when the Malone family vanished 7 people, gone in a single day. No signs of struggle, no remains. Just an empty house, a dead dog, and a muddy path leading toward the barn. They never found the well back then. Or maybe they did, and someone decided to bury it, but Daniel had opened it again by November. 3 more people were missing: 2 hikers and a surveyor who came looking for Daniel after he stopped responding. Their trucks were found parked just off the logging road, their boots still in the grass. No footprints leading away. Locals started hearing things. Not just crying anymore, but laughing childlike giggles echoing from culverts, drains, tree hollows. Sometimes in the early morning mist, people swore they saw wet handprints smeared across their windshields. Always on the inside. The land went up for auction in December. No one bid, not even the oil companies. Word had gotten around. The well, they said, was open again. And whatever had been waiting down there for all those years, whatever wept and whispered and watched, was no longer sleeping. Because now, every time it rained, the water didn't collect in puddles. It flowed backward, upstream, upslope toward the well. As if something was calling it home. And in the stillest hours of the night, if you're close enough to the woods outside Lufkin, you might hear it too. The well doesn't whisper anymore. It screams. They called her Aunt Rue, even though no one in the county remembered what her real name was. She lived alone in a sagging house deep in the piney woods east of Nacogdoches, out past the old sawmill, where the roads turned to mud and the trees leaned so close together you'd think they were whispering about you. They said she came from the coast after the war. No one was sure which war, and built that crooked house by hand, plank by plank, with wood that didn't grow in any East Texas forest. People left her alone, not out of respect, out of fear. When you were a kid in those parts, you grew up hearing about her. She wasn't a ghost, she was worse. Ghosts are past. Aunt Rue was now. Folks whispered that if you saw her chimney smoking, after dusk you turned around. If you heard her humming from the trees, you plugged your ears and ran. She didn't kill. Not in the usual way. She did something quieter, deeper. She undid people. But time passed and stories blurred. Kids stopped believing. Phones replaced local legends. And then came Reese. Reese Whitaker was 22. Fresh out of Sam Houston State with a half-earned anthropology degree and a podcast called Dead South. He drove a rented Jeep into deep East Texas in late September, hoping to record some spooky folklore for a Halloween special. He found an old man named Eli near a bake shop on the outskirts of the woods, paid him with beer and a gas card for directions to Aunt Rue's. Eli didn't want to tell him. Not for money, not for anything. But Reese was persistent, arrogant the way only people who've never seen death up close can be. Eventually, Eli drew him a crude map on a diner napkin. Reese parked the Jeep, where the dirt turned to moss, and walked the last mile in. He brought a flashlight, 2 mics, a thermos of gas station coffee, and a big city confidence that the woods would bleed out of him in a podcast episode. And nothing more. But the woods had already noticed him. From the moment he crossed the ditch, things changed. No birds, no crickets. Just wind, sharp and constant, like it was funneling toward something. Trees stood too close, their trunks wide and wet-looking, and the deeper he went, the more they seemed to lean. The path didn't twist, but it felt like it did. Time crawled. His coffee went cold in under 10 minutes. His phone showed 6:31 p.m., then 2:17 a.m. Then nothing at all. He found the house suddenly, too suddenly, like it had been dropped there. It was ugly and low and wide, with walls made of dark wood that didn't reflect light. The windows were small and clouded, and the chimney was smoking thick and black, even though it was 80 degrees out. The porch creaked under his boots. The door opened before he knocked. She was standing there. Not old, not young. Not anything in a way that the brain could hold on to. Her skin was the color of ash. Her eyes were the color of absence. Her mouth was a line, then a grin, then a line again. She wore a dress that looked handmade but perfect, like it had never been sewn so much as grown. "I knew you'd come," she said. Reese stammered, introduced himself, held up the mic. She didn't care. "You smell like false things," she said. "Come in anyway." The house was bigger inside. It breathed. The walls pulsed slightly, like lungs beneath wallpaper. There were jars, hundreds of them lining every shelf. Some held feathers, teeth, small bones. Others were filled with dark liquid and things that moved without light. She made him tea. He didn't drink it. He asked questions. She answered none, just watched him. He talked into the mic. Nothing recorded. Static. Not white noise breathing. Rhythmic and wrong. After a while he stood up to leave. "No one leaves," she said, not unkindly. "Unless you brought something to leave in your place." He laughed out she didn't. Reese ran. Tripped. Got up. Ran again. The trees weren't right. The trail twisted in ways that hurt his knees. Branches reached too far. Scratched too deep. The air smelled like rust and oranges. He got back to the Jeep somehow. It was idling, though he was sure he hadn't left it running. He drove like hell. Never stopped. Didn't look back the next day. Back in Houston, he uploaded the episode. Called it The Witch of Langley Bend. Told the story, laughed at the tea. Called her a crazy old woman with a flair for theatrics. The episode did numbers, but the breathing didn't stop. At first. It was just in the background of his recordings. Then in his dreams. Then in his walls. Every night at 3:17, his lights would flicker. His phone would die, and he would hear humming from somewhere he couldn't find. He tried deleting the episode. It came back. He smashed his equipment. Still heard the breathing. 2 weeks later, he was found in his apartment, curled up in a closet, blind and humming to himself. The words he kept repeating didn't make sense. Not in English. The last recording on his phone was 41 minutes of black. Silence. Then a voice. Soft. Familiar. "Now I have your story," it whispered. "You can stay in mine." And somewhere in deep East Texas, if you walk the woods near Langley Bend and the wind shifts just right, you might hear a podcast playing. Faintly from the trees. Static. Then breathing. Then a voice that doesn't belong to the living anymore. They never cut through Dead Horse Hollow unless they had to. Even the loggers, men who worked 14-hour shifts with saws and sweat and hands like tree bark, avoided that stretch of land like it was cursed. They'd go miles out of the way, haul timber through rougher trails, lose hours of work time just to avoid crossing that part of the woods, because it was cursed. Not in the Hollywood way. Not in any way that looked exciting. It was worse than that. Subtle. Quiet. Patient. The hollow sat just west of Hemphill, tucked between the Sabine River and an old Confederate cemetery no one had tended in decades. The pine trees there were older than the maps. Their roots twisted through headstones and bone. The air always seemed colder, even in August. And the light bent differently there. Shadows didn't fall the right way. Time slowed. When Jacob Everly bought that land, people told him he was a damn fool. He wasn't from Sabine County. He was from Austin, too smart, too smug, and too sure the old stories were just backward superstition. He said he was going to build a retreat, a place for artists and musicians to disconnect from the noise. He called it Boundary House. He bought 10 acres, surveyed them, and hired a team to clear the path. The crew quit on the second day. One of them swore he saw a man standing in the trees, barefoot, skin gray and sagging like a wet tarp, no eyes, just holes. Another said the air buzzed in his teeth like chewing foil. Jacob told them to stop being dramatic. He brought in another crew. That one never showed Dot, so he did it himself. He brought a chainsaw, a tent, a satellite phone, and a week's worth of supplies. His friends back in the city laughed at him, said he'd post sunrise yoga videos by Tuesday. The first day went fine. He cleared a trail, found a good clearing near a cluster of pines. The silence was deep. Peaceful, he thought. That night it rained, but only on his tent, just his. The rest of the forest stayed bone dry. He could hear the drops, but when he stepped out to check, nothing. Sky clear, grass dry. Tent soaked out on the second day. His compass spun, not like it was confused, like it was lying. His phone lost time. First it was 11:20, then 2:03, then it blinked off and wouldn't come back. He didn't panic. Not yet. But that night, the whispering started. It came from beneath the soil, not through the air underneath. Low, soft, like someone talking through mud. He couldn't make out words. Just intent. He didn't sleep. On the third day, he found the path gone. The trees had moved, not fallen moved. He knew because the stump he sat on for lunch yesterday was now 30 feet to the left. His tent had shifted too, by at least a dozen feet. No wind, no prints. That afternoon, he heard singing. A child's voice. Familiar in the way that things from dreams are, it sang a lullaby he hadn't heard in decades. A song his mother used to hum when she was dying of cancer. He ran toward it. It stopped. He was alone again. By the fourth day, Jacob was pacing, recording voice notes into a dead phone, talking to himself in loops. It's just old trees, just a hollow, just a trick of the mind, just light, just pine needles, just. He stepped in a circle for 2 hours before he realized he'd worn a perfect ring into the dirt. That night, he didn't hear the whispers. He heard footsteps, heavy, wet. They circled his tent for hours. Something dragged behind them, something long. When he peeked through the zipper, there was nothing there, but the footprints stayed, and they didn't lead to the tent. They led out of it. On the fifth day, Jacob woke up outside, lying on a stone marker he hadn't seen before. It was part of a sunken grave, old Civil War era. The name had been scratched out, deeply, like someone had been desperate to forget. And beside it, half buried, was a small wooden stake, a boundary marker. His surveyor flags were gone, and when he turned to head back, he saw the line. It was faint, but real, etched into the earth, looping through the trees like a scar. And something about it screamed final. It wasn't meant to keep people out. It was meant to keep something in. He crossed it without thinking. He just needed to go home, get help, get sleep. But the moment he stepped across, the woods went silent. The air thinned, and he knew he wasn't Jacob anymore. Not fully. Part of him was still back there. He made it out eventually. Or most of him did. He wandered into a diner near Millam 6 days later, barefoot, sunburnt, muttering about maps that shifted and bones that whispered in Morse code. He wouldn't step on dirt. Only concrete. Even in parking lots, he stayed on painted lines, like he thought the ground might swallow him if he stepped wrong. He doesn't talk about boundary house anymore. But he draws things, circles, lines. And in every sketch, there's something watching from just beyond the edge. Waiting. Because sometimes, when you cross a line, you don't just go somewhere else. Something comes with you.